Oh, this is, it's all good. Hi, everybody. David here, your Torah Tech Guy, and I am so excited. I had some time to kill, so I decided to hop online and see if you all have any questions, maybe talk some tech, maybe show. People have been asking me how I do some of the stuff that I do, so I thought I'd show some of that. And but boy, I didn't expect this. Check this out, folks. Look at this. Come on, Leo Mindell. How you doing?
Very well, David. Wow.
It's so
and you
nice
sound absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so the backstory here is that both Leo and I have new toys. We both have the Behringer Flow 8 and the Heil PR40, which I mostly got just because everybody on office hours says I'm using the Heil PR40. And yeah, and it's a beautiful, it's just a magical setup. What were you using before? Why did you switch to this?
So I was on a Marantz microphone. So to explain to people what we're talking about is we changed our microphone and our mixers. The microphone is because I had a lot of the room. You could hear a lot of the room. You could hear the echoes. And so I went to this microphone. And this microphone really is designed for radio broadcasts. And hopefully you're hearing a voice which sounds much more present. You can hear the high ends at the top and my bass voice. People say to me I shout too much, but that's what you get. And it is present, which should mean that you who are listening to me should hear me and be able to follow me much clearer than some of the microphones I've had in the past. So that was my main choice of changing to the microphone.
You know, I have come over to the dark side because for the longest time I was all about keep the mic out of the shot, and so I had a shotgun mic up above.
Yep, shotgun.
And I think it was fine. But I kept hearing the audio professionals say, the closer the mic is, the better audio you're going to get. And boy, it's true. It just makes a huge difference. I'm still waiting for my. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's the strange thing is that while we are actually doing something here, we're presenting our faces, we're on camera, we're talking to people. We have to remember also a lot of people are actually listening to us, and when you listen, and when you can hear the voice and you can hear it clearly. You can actually pass that message on much better. So although the video is super important, and I think we can always have that discussion, what's more important, the video or the audio, I actually think in a lot of cases that the meaning of what you're putting over comes over better when you can hear someone clearly. And I've sat there with listening, as I've talked to you before, David, listening to services, listening to some of the most beautiful sermons ever, and you're struggling to hear it. And then when you struggle to hear something, it's like sitting, driving your car with the windscreen wipers off and it's raining. And you're like, I can't quite see what I want to see. And when you realize that with audio and you can't quite hear what you want to hear, and it's just a barrier, that causes that level of disconnection.
Sure.
We want to try and see if we can get better.
I was on a webinar the other night with Nicholas Children's Hospital down here in Miami about COVID and sending kids back to school. And they had all of the presenters were using handheld microphones, and they would start speaking, forgetting to lift the mic up. And so you'd miss the first couple of seconds, then they would, and I'm not an audiophile, so it's not like I was listening for the quality of the microphones, but it makes it so difficult to follow, to stay engaged. And that, to me, that's the name of the game when you're dealing with digital, sharing digital Torah, teaching, davening, speaking, anything you're doing in digital space. It's already hard enough to engage people, to keep them interested when we're face to face, when we're on site in person together. This distance just makes it so much more difficult. And so as much as I'd love to say it's not about the tech, to a certain extent it is, right? If you don't have a good microphone, if you're not providing good audio, that's going to immediately detract from the experience that people have.
And that's the point. It isn't about necessarily having the best technology so that you can say that, well, it sounds much, much better than anything ever heard. I don't think I'm ever doing that. What I'm trying to do is I'm just moving as I've tried different microphones, and I've slowly moved in a direction so that I hope that people can hear me clearly. They can actually see me. I've changed my lighting over the time. We're always playing with everything. You go around and actually I'm learning more from the theatre world than I am from the broadcast world, because you actually look at the theatre designers and you look at theatre sets and you look at lighting and you look at how they present things and you go, actually, there's things they do that they're working with a limited palette. If you ever look at a theatre and you look at what's happening in the room, they're working with a limited palette and they are filling the gaps in your mind to say, right, we have a stage, but actually what we're going to do is present to you as the best we can. And I've just recently finished doing some work at my own synagogue where we've redressed how we've made it look. And we're just working harder to make that appear as nice as we can for people who are there so they can actually see it. And not only can the people who are remote see it, because we will be carrying on as everybody else is. So we're never going back. The clock's not going to be reset. We're not going to be sitting there and saying we're only going to be in the service, only going to be in the synagogue. We're also going to be remote as well. And so we need to make sure that both the people in there and remote can have an experience as best as we can deliver.
Right. It just dawned on me that people may not know you. People who have watched my stuff may not know you, and people who watch your stuff may not know me, because we're all over the place. So I'm throwing the name up there, and I'm going to put my name up too.
Throw the name up.
And Leo, where are you, and what do you do? What brings you here?
We jumped in the beginning. We've jumped in the middle of this.
Sorry about that.
So that's fine. That's fine. I'm hoping that I'm going to get, you're going to offer me some chicken soup at the end of this, just so that
I just had some hummus. Does that count?
That's it. I saw that. Okay. So, hi, I'm Leo Mindell. I'm based in the UK. You probably can tell by the voice. I'm based just in Northwest London. My background, I've been involved in the IT industry for a really long time, but for the last 8+ years, I've been doing all the live streaming for the Board of Deputies of British Jews. And from there, I also set up the streaming at my own synagogue. And I've helped around about 10 or 12 synagogues in the UK doing their live streaming. I also work for various other Jewish organizations around the world, assisting them to be able to deliver their message online in this time and reach both from a political side. So I deal with a number of the political organizations and also the religious organizations in UJIA and others to deliver their message.
And you've also been really active since this whole pandemic started. I just stood up, so now I need to adjust my camera. With Dreaming Tech and Synagogue Tech and office hours also. I mean, you've really placed yourself as sort of the go-to, person for the Jewish communities when it comes to figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, my view, and I'll give you the background story of this, and this is really quickly, but the story what happened. Unfortunately, unfortunately, my mother passed away from cancer a number of years ago. However, a year before she died, my daughter sung the Haftorah blessings on the High Holy Days. My mother couldn't be in the shul because she was ill. And I recorded it and streamed it and recorded it and gave her the video of it, which it was the last time my daughter was able to sing before my mother passed away. Wow. And I sat there and I went, why did I have to sort of sneak a phone in to do that?
Yeah.
Why? And I remember also vividly, and this is another story related, very similar. We had a number of years before that, we had a sermon at our shul, And the rabbi at the time, our assistant rabbi, who was fairly new, he came out to the congregation in what was probably one of the most moving sermons that I ever heard. He came from a Hasidic background, and when he came out there, he literally was cut off from his family, his kids, etc., as you can imagine happened, and moved to a different country and joined our synagogue. We all sat there, and I sat there afterwards going, that just happened, and there's not a single recording of that ever. And I sat there and I said, I really believe in my heart that we should be able to change this. And it's not, and I realize that what I'm saying for some in some denominations is just, it's not going to happen. Okay. I'm not trying to make that change. But for others, there is the opportunity. And I sat there and thought, we've got to see what we can do to see if we can make this and how we can reach out. And then when the whole pandemic happened, we turned on, we were already streaming, but we changed to even further so that we could actually
This
deliver.
is in your synagogue. You were already streaming.
In my synagogue, exactly. And what you then realize, and this is the thing that you realize, is there's people sitting at home that have been sitting at home in the past. And a good example, again, was with my mother. When she was very ill, she was in hospital. And it was amazing. Chabad went and visited her in hospital and davened with her when she was there, right? As they do.
Yep.
Right. She sat there, and for her to be able to literally sit there and watch a service on a Saturday and just have that connection when you are ill and you're sitting in your hospital bed, it's like, this is what we're there. And there's a lot of people who have been sitting for lots of reasons who haven't been able to watch or haven't been involved in our services, which we suddenly brought back in the room. These people, they may have reasons that they can't travel, they have for distance, but also for some disabilities, etc. We've brought them back in. They've suddenly become a major part of our community. And for that reason, I just hope that what we are doing and what we're delivering, I thought, we've got to keep doing this. And we've got to help services. We've got to help synagogues. We've got to help communities that maybe we've got a very small community with a visiting rabbi that only comes every couple of months, to bring them back into the fold, so that maybe what they want to do on a Saturday is just have it on while they're doing the house cleaning. I'm not going to judge, but if that's what they want to do on a Saturday morning, we can do that. And furthermore, if we can bring the Jewish education in as well, wow, what a difference that's going to make.
Do you think there's I don't know if this is real or if I'm making it up, but I have noticed what I perceive to be a different way of connecting in digital space. Here's what I mean. People like you and I, who are involved in technology and other live streamers, we go to YouTube. We kind of live on YouTube. Not live on YouTube. We go to YouTube. I'm finding that a lot of the people that I'm talking with, they may visit YouTube from time to time, but their home is Facebook. And it's interesting because you get a better experience, certainly with video on YouTube, than you do on Facebook. Do we speak the same? I mean, do we have the language down? Do we speak the same language so that synagogues and rabbis and teachers can seamlessly move into this space? Or do we have to learn a whole new language in order to do this?
It's a very good observation and a question there, which is you look at what we deliver and you look at the way to deliver things and you say, does this work? Doesn't it work? And I think there was a very good comment, and I can't remember where it came from, but it was connection over perfection, which is where we were at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of people were just like, we need to connect, we need to turn on our phones, we need to be able to at least communicate. And I was seeing a lot of communities were having things like tea with a rabbi on a Saturday, on a midweek, 11 o'clock in the morning, you could have tea with a rabbi and get that connection going back in that they were missing.
In America, that's Starbucks. Just so we have that also, but it's not tea with the rabbi. It's meat at Starbucks. But go ahead.
But yeah, well, I think we actually have more we did at one point have more Starbucks in London than anywhere else in the world. But but the point is that you have to work out how to communicate. But actually, David, you've just brought up a very good point, which is you adjust to the surrounding. When Starbucks came, we suddenly decided that we can actually meet in Starbucks.
Right.
We didn't meet at the JCC. We met at the Starbucks. Basically the same place, really. It depends on where you are, but it's very similar. And then what we're trying to do now is we're saying we've got to deliver to these different platforms. And I think what you're right is that the message that you put out on YouTube may not be the message that works on Facebook. It definitely is a different audience. And I think those audiences don't necessarily define it by saying, well, this is the best quality. Quality isn't necessarily driven as you and I may sit there and go, oh, we've got to make it sound as good as possible. We've got to make it look as good as possible. Yes, we do. But the audience is sitting there going, we want to, sometimes they want to interact in a different way. And I think Zoom gets a really good vibe sometimes, and it gets a really bad one. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the pandemic, people got turned off from Zoom with the Zoom bombing incidences.
I didn't understand the hype about. I didn't understand that at all. As if somehow Zoom was more susceptible to bombing than any. It's only because everyone was using Zoom. That's why it wasn't.
I think it comes down to the same thing as, the media like to report anything and anything they can, and it was a fairly easy target. And also, like with everything, maybe the locks weren't in place and you would have people print the Zoom address in a fairly open place, so it's fairly easy to get hold of. And that caused the problems. And then you get a concern. And I had this at a synagogue a couple of weeks ago where they broadcast to YouTube in this instance, and it's on YouTube. And somebody wrote some comments in the YouTube chat, which they can do because the chat's turned on, which is in most of the cases really works out well, because you want to turn around to the congregation and say, could you tell us any yard sites we've forgotten so that we can actually read them out. And somebody started writing some irrelevant or whatever stuff. And the comment you got back from somebody quite senior in that synagogue was, we've been hacked. And you're like going, no, you've not been hacked. You've not been hacked. You've just,
someone's
just
trolling
how
you maybe,
the world
but
works.
Right.
Yeah, someone's trolling you, but it's, and of course, what then happens is someone says we've been hacked. And now for the next 4 weeks, someone keeps saying, are we going to be hacked? What damage?
Right.
What have they got into? How have they got it? And you're like, and you're having to roll back on the thing. And it's like, hold on.
So how do we prevent that, right? And how do we handle that? I mean, one thing you said it before. One thing is, don't post your Zoom links on social media or even on your website. You should not have. I actually post a Zoom. I have a Zoom link that I'm happy to share with everyone, but there's a waiting room and there's a passcode to get in, and there's all this other stuff. So there is. Synagogues have worked. We were actually just discussing this here in my synagogue. We have worked for decades to lower the bars, to make synagogue more accessible, to make it easier for people to come in. And the idea of locking a Zoom link behind a whatever is so antithetical to who we are. We, over here now, there are a lot of synagogues that are saying you can only come in to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur if you're vaccinated. And that is such a painful thing for us to say, because it's antithetical to what we've always wanted to do. So other than not publishing your Zoom link, what do you do when someone pops in the YouTube chat? And
so I always look at it the same way as certain synagogues take to whether their address is on social media or on Google. So if you can find, if you look on Google Street Map and can you find them, and there's some synagogues will sort of go, no, we're going to hide our address because that way we stop getting anti-Semitic attacks, et cetera, et cetera. Or you look at it, so in the UK, we have the CST, you have an equivalent in America. And what they will do are the community support trust. So there are security that we have across the community. And so what they will do is they
cybersecurity?
No, real security.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have, all synagogues in the UK have got cameras, outside cameras, CCTV cameras, number plate recognition cameras, so that if you drive past, it's all recorded, et cetera, and we will have security guards or members of the congregation who have done the training to be present on services. And when it comes to High Holy Days, the number of people there increases quite dramatically. And we will be ticketed, and we will be having people's names, etc., coming in. And we do that. So we do all of that. Great. So why online? What do you do the equivalent? And how do you do it, as you just said, without making it so super intrusive? And I had this with one synagogue, a different synagogue. They saw the names, they didn't recognize the names, and they started kicking out people they didn't know personally. And they threw out senior members of the synagogue because they hadn't changed their names fast enough from something to something. Right. And it becomes, it's super difficult, because you start that again. It's that whole thing is you end up damaging it, or you end up the rumors go round is super fast that everything's gone wrong, and you've just got to we're learning. I've said this to you before. You sort of sometimes laugh at me when I say this, but I've said it to you before. 2,000 years ago, we changed from what we were as a religion, and we have literally had less than 2 years in this new environment. And we are changing as a religion, and certain parts of us, I'm not saying all of us, but certain parts are changing, and are changing in such a fast-paced thing that we will look back and you will sit there and you'll go, this marked Judaism up to this point, this marked it to this point, this marked it to this point. And I do think this is going to be one of those times when we look back and we say, from this point onwards, maybe we are or we aren't a cyber religion. I don't know. But, some people will say we are, some people will say we're not.
One of the things about just focusing in on that YouTube piece, or having bad actors come into your Zoom or whatever it is, I think that I'll just speak for myself. I put a lot of trust in the technology, but at the end of the day, the technology is only as good as the people behind it. And so Zoom is not going to kick out a bad actor. YouTube is not going to take down an ugly comment. That's why it's important. And I've made this argument a couple of times, actually, that one of the transitions that I think we need to make is in how we think about staffing our institutions, right? We need to have people who are dedicated to building, sustaining, nurturing, and protecting online communities of Torah. The online communities that we are building within our communities. And the churches in America have been doing this for years. The large churches, they have digital pastors. I actually take part in a call every once in a while from Elevation Church. And they have a whole team of digital pastors, and their job is to monitor comments and respond and engage. And when necessary, kick people out or take comments down or what have you. We can't rely on the technology to do that one-on-one personal work that we've always done on site. Now we just have to do that same work in a different kind of space.
Yeah. I mean, so a report came out just over a week ago that the figure, I can't remember the exact figure, it's somewhere between 70 and 80% of all reported anti-Semitic cases that were sent to to Facebook did not follow up on.
Wow.
So they don't follow up on these things. So the reality is, as you rightly say, it comes down to us. Now, we can sit there and say, oh, woe is us. We can also sit there and say, well, we shouldn't be here. Or we can sit there and go, well, we're going to have to learn to adapt. And maybe some of that adaptation or these levels comes down to us. And I agree that, you can sit there and say, well, we should expect YouTube to do this. We should expect Facebook to do that. And I think there is a degree of that, but I also think there is a way that you can be positive and move forward on these things. And I think that's the thing. I've raised my head above the parapet. I'm trying to get synagogues to stream. Does that mean I'm going to go through this world without having a few things thrown at me? No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, it's going to happen. But does that mean to say I should stop doing it, or should I retract back? And my feeling is that not only in my personal journey in Judaism, and also my belief in humanity and the bigger and wider areas, I stand up for other rights that aren't just mine. I will stand up for LGBTQ rights. I will stand up for Black Lives Matter rights. I will stand up for those rights, and that's just how I am. And I just feel in this one, us streaming is saying, I'm standing up for the rights of people who cannot come to synagogue. And if that means occasionally I have to deal with bad actors, if that means occasionally I have to deal with people who are going to block us or do this or going to try and deface a website, well, unfortunately, it comes with the territory. That doesn't mean to say I'm not suggesting bring it on. I want to have to deal with it, but I'm also sitting there going, I'm not going to walk away, and you're not going to force me off this platform.
Yeah.
Because then they've won, and that's just to my view, that isn't the way to do it.
The reform movement.
Think that's it.
Yeah, the reform movement framed this, I think, really beautifully when they suggested that we stop talking about hybrid and start talking about multi-access. That this moment is, as much as it is about a pandemic, and that necessitates us to use digital tools, it also is an amazing opportunity, as you just said, to be more aware of those folks who either don't want to or can't, or for whatever reason aren't coming into our buildings, and now we can come into their homes. And what that story of your it was your grandmother. Just amazing.
No, it's my mother. It was my mother.
Right, your daughter's
my mother, my daughter's grandmother. Yeah.
Yeah. Just amazing. Just amazing.
That's, as a religion which is hugely based around the family, and that's a key part of our religion is, and that thing, and the life cycles are, you could argue for a lot of people, their Judaism consists of maybe twice a year in life cycles. Right. And that's it. So, to ensure that when, my daughter's got a great singing voice. When she was sitting there and she was giving the Haftorah prayers on that, it was like everybody in the synagogue is like, yeah, they're loving it. And I'm sitting there thinking, and all I can think about is the one person who should be sitting here hearing this is my mother, who's not here because she's, fighting a battle. And that was how life is. That's how life is.
I think that there's, by the way, I should just say that for those of you who are watching, if you have thoughts, questions, insights, throw them into the chat. We'll talk about them. We don't really have an agenda other than I love talking to Leo, and he's really, really smart, and I love learning with him. And when we're done, I'm probably going to try and rope him into doing this with me once a week. We'll see what he says about that. But so if you do have questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We'll absolutely try and address them. I just want to say that I think that there is another component of this that we probably haven't spoken a lot about yet, or I should say enough about yet, is the financial piece. There's been a lot of hemming and hawing over the added expense that comes from, I have to buy a camera, I have to buy a microphone, I have to whatever. But when we think about the opportunities that we have, the potential cost savings that we have, it's sort of unbelievable. I was setting up an amazing teacher. You actually might even know her name, Sandra Lilienthal. She's taught at Limud a number of times. I think she may have even taught out in London at Limud. She can now teach anywhere in the world, and people don't have to buy her flights. They don't have to buy her a hotel. The synagogues who for the longest time struggled to get big name speakers or performers, now all of a sudden have access to a whole new world of or a whole new part of the Jewish world that for financial reasons was unavailable to them. And I just think that's such a powerful opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to the schools around the world and what they're able to bring and who they can bring into the room to talk. It's just amazing. I mean, Limud announced yesterday in the UK, they're going to have run it two, I think it's a couple of days, one in London and one in Manchester. It's the first time they've been in multi locations. The reason they're doing that is that the thoughts of, they normally have it somewhere central in the UK, which is Birmingham, and they bring everybody into one physical place. There's just the feeling that probably is pushing their luck too much. So they're going to have it in two different places, but they're actually going to have a completely separate online experience at the same time. So they're going to have online days, so that you can actually do it in both ways. And I think that's really, Ben, who's in charge of it this year, hats off to you, Ben. You've actually sat there, thought about how to deliver this, and made sure that you're going to deliver, not have this horrible hybrid. We're going to try and just meet some people here and some people here. Do a really good program for both sets of people, and I bet you
that's something worth diving in. Yeah, that's worth diving into more. I mean, we can get into that more because it's so interesting that they're doing that they're really thinking of it as two separate experiences for people. And
I bet you that, as you said, there'll be people like yourself, David, and others around the world who go, "Oh, I haven't been to Limud, I haven't experienced it,
right?
But I can try and see." And then you're going to put it on your calendar for maybe in the future you'll actually visit the thing. And I think that's what I want to see. I want to see us taking this adversity and turning it into opportunity to grow.
Amen.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to grow and we can talk about going out and doing missionary work, but that's maybe way off probably where you and I are supposed to be talking about. But I've just seen a comment in here from somebody, Andrew, who's just commented, "I feel I went from being Jewish to Jewish, and now back to Jewish." I think that's a really good comment. A number of people who have reconnected over this period of time, and probably reconnected in a way to say, well, I don't want to go every week. That's not me. That's not what I want to do. But I can feel this is a bit of my identity. And maybe they're walking along with other people who are walking along the same journey at the same time and going, do you know what? Maybe this is the bit that these people are here to help me. And I think that's important.
And in a time when we talked a lot about isolation. in some ways, we're more connected than ever because of these new tools. We're more connected through our isolation. I also wanted to mention that this is fantastic. The local Buddhist Sangha, I hope I'm saying that correctly, has turned international since we started streaming. It's provided access to folks who live far away from any Buddhist community. Absolutely. Absolutely, Eric. And to as you said, Leo, to seize this as an opportunity. It's a tircha, right? It's a burden. I get it. It is a burden. It doesn't have to be a painful burden. It can be a joyful burden. And it can be an opportunity that we use to make ourselves international. I mean, I've spoken to you, Leo, more often than I've spoken to my mom, who's watching right now. Hi, Mom. And she lives only 3,000 miles away from me, not 5,000 or 6,000 miles away from me. So yeah, in fact, office hours, which you're a regular part of, and I jump in every once in a while. Office hours is actually an amazing. It's not for everyone because it's very tech focused, but just the collection of people that are there from Australia, from Singapore, from the UK, it's just amazing, the international flavors that we're experiencing. It's like the Olympics.
But I think it's more than that. I give some other examples. So the JCM, Jewish Christians and Muslims, they run a conference every year, and they've been doing their conferences. Normally, they happen to run in Germany quite often, and they've been running we were involved in the one this year and helping them deliver it online. And they brought in people from Indonesia, they brought in people from Germany, as I said, from the UK and from other countries. And what you realize when you get to it, and I'm seeing this across all religions, is we're all trying to work out how to solve a similar problem. And then I think it was as I heard it, that the idea that that you can sit there and ask somebody at a mega church, or you can ask somebody Unitarian, or you can sit there and you can ask somebody else how to deliver these elements of your connection to people is wonderful. It's wonderful. I was, across all religions, and I've seen this happening. And what it doesn't just break down a barrier of help. That's key. That's important. It does that. But it suddenly makes people realize that the person who maybe is holding a service on a Sunday and the person who is organizing a service on a Saturday or doing something on a Friday are similar. And we are actually all trying to do something maybe in a slightly different way, and it's a different thing. And then you sit there and you realize actually we're all actually trying to we're all trying to struggle through the same problem at the moment.
Right.
And
it's that struggle piece that I love. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if we help each other, we can get there.
The hybrid ministries,
and I think that's key.
Is such a great example of that.
Exactly. So that's
so for those of you who don't, tell them what hybrid ministries is.
I'm going to say so. It's run by Marty. It came out of UU, and they they're doing a very similar thing. They're trying to work out how to get their congregations to be able to live stream when they've literally, and a lot of them have left their buildings. They left them at the beginning of the pandemic and haven't been back in yet. And they're trying to keep that connection going. And they've got a different approach to different parts. Everybody does. But Marty's put together the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum. Maybe the name at the time of hybrid maybe dates it, but that's not the point. And they've been so welcoming in helping and assisting across all denominations, across all religions. And it's just a great experience to be dealing with these people. And as I said, you suddenly realize we're all having a very similar journey. And when you share a journey with somebody, I think this is the case with everything. You share a journey with somebody. You share whether that is that you've sat in an airport when we used to be able to fly, and we've all been there. When you've had a 21-hour delay in an airport, and suddenly these people you never knew suddenly become people that you have a shared experience, and you get to know, and that you realize that all these people that you never knew and everything are following the same experience that you are. And that, I think, I'm just hopeful that we're going to keep some of this cuts and bruises and baggage that has happened over this last 18 months with us for a long enough time that we will actually form bonds across in our religion and also outside with other people that we have dealt with on this journey.
I would actually say that I've been really impressed and deeply proud of the sharing that's happening just within the Jewish faith. The communities that have popped up, the communities of sharing, the communities of practice that have popped up, including the ones that you're a part of, that have allowed synagogues and leaders and rabbis and whoever to learn from one another and to grow and to get their questions answered. And I mean, I don't think we're not used to being this sharing. We're very used to holding, at my synagogue, my members, my. I'm not criticizing anyone.
Yeah.
I think that's what we've done. But now all of a sudden we're asking for and we're offering help, which is really beautiful.
So I think a really good example of that was what the conservative movement was able to deliver in America, was able to deliver to the world, the ability to ask Zoom in a polite way to extend so that a Zoom service for Yom Kippur can survive and run live for longer than 24 hours.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. They got it to, and by the way, it's active. It's again this year. Everybody who was it was Rabbi Joshua. Why am I blanking on his name?
I can't think. He was on. Yeah.
Rabbi Joshua Heller. He who's an amazing rabbi and leader in the conservative movement. He's a member of the RA, and he's just an amazing guy. So he got Zoom to lift that 24-hour cap and make it 72 hours. So that now if you've got 2 days of Yontif and Shabbos, which I guess is what we had last year. I don't know what this year we don't have that issue, but
no, we don't have this issue.
Right. But you could now keep a persistent Zoom open so that people don't have to touch their computers and log in. And so everybody who was on the list, I guess there was a list from last year, is automatically on the list for this year. Zoom's doing it again. And I don't know if it's still available, but he did put a call out saying, hey, if anybody needs this. You're right. That's kind of an amazing thing that he did.
I just think that there is a joke which I haven't quite formed in my head, which is he basically kept the Zoom candle burning for 8 days. But we can mix it around.
Yeah. A great miracle happened here.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe this one is slightly more real than the other one. But then that's another matter.
Hey, the other one's real. What are you talking about? It's not true. Hey, what's the single most asked question that you get from the synagogues that you work with? Or the single biggest challenge that you.
So I think it comes down to two things. The single easiest thing to solve is when they say, the quality of Zoom looks poor. What can we do about it? And that's a really easy question to solve and answer, which we've discussed before anyway.
Yeah, but
I've got to move my camera to the right way around. You get yourself a Zoom portal. This is a Facebook portal. This is a Facebook portal. And when one of these joins a Zoom call, it turns the Zoom call into high definition. So it's fairly cheap and inexpensive. You get them in a model that looks like that, or you get them as a bar that just sits on top of a TV. And either of those, when they join a Zoom call, the call quality goes up to 720p, which is high definition.
Can you explain
Why
why?
is
Yeah.
why do you want it to? Why does
No,
it
can
do
you?
it, or
Yeah,
why do
why?
you want
Well,
it?
both. Maybe both.
Okay, why does it do it? It's a quirk of Zoom that Zoom was always set so that when what was known as a Zoom room joins, it bumps the quality. So that's why it does it.
Which, by the way,
Why?
Zoom Room. Sorry to interrupt you. Zoom Room
Yeah,
is very confusing to me. I mean, all the
yeah.
terminology here,
It's
because it's
to me.
not. It's not a
Yeah.
space. It's a device, right?
Well, it actually in this case, it is a space. It was designed that the terminology was a meeting room in an office. So that's where it came from. A Zoom room was a meeting room. So you would have your office and you'd have 5 breakout rooms in the room. So typically, why in the back of my mind, why did it do it? Is that when you would use a Zoom room would be the time that you would be doing a presentation to a customer or to a client or to another organization. So you can imagine 5 people in the room. There they are presenting to a remote person. So they wanted to have it up to a higher quality. And I guess that's exactly the same as you can imagine, that sort of like boardroom meeting, that sort of thing. So C-suite meetings. So that's the there. Why do you want to do it? Get a Sefer Torah, get a prayer book, hold it up when it's at the standard definition, and hold it up when it's at 720p. And it's an amazing difference. It's absolutely an amazing difference. You go from what are they reading to actually seeing it clearly. And that's the difference that it makes. And if you are broadcasting, if you're doing something where instead of our names are on the bottom, but you've got liturgy on the left hand side or the right hand side of your screen, whichever way you want to do it and whichever way you read from, you can having that on there makes a difference. And we come back to that thing that we talked about at the beginning, David, where we're saying we're trying to break down a barrier. And if you can actually make it so someone can read the information, or
Yeah.
they can see the liturgy, they can follow the Torah prayer, they can follow the Torah, that they can actually see the Sefer Torah and they can actually read it and follow it. And that's probably one of the most amazing things that I think has changed. For someone like yourself, you look at Sefer Torah on a very regular basis. For me, a Jew in the pews, I get to see that. I got to see it when I was 13. I get to see it when I got married. I get to see it about 3 times, and that's about it. The rest of the time, I see it from the distance. Suddenly being able to see it, it's just, I'm like, wow, it's
Yep.
there. And I can see
I've
it
suggested
every
to
week.
so many communities that they have a Torah cam.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't have to be the highest quality camera, but you're right. This morning on Office Hours we were talking about sports events, and one of the differences, or some of the differences between attending a sports event on site and participating in one, or I should say, watching one online or over your TV. And one of the major differences is that when you're in the stadium, you don't have nearly the amount of information shared with you that you do when you're watching a broadcast. You can't see the plays. I mean, that's why they put jumbotrons in. They put jumbotrons in because the in-person, the on-site experience is not as good as the broadcast experience, and so the jumbotrons in some ways are kind of trying to give you a little bit of that digital experience by showing you the close-ups, by putting stats up and things like that. In the synagogue, being able to show people what you're reading from the Torah, or having one of the things that I'm working on right now, it's actually going to launch in the next couple of days, is something called discoverjewish.art. I think I just launched it by saying that. But discoverjewish.art, what I found last year is that I was creating visual tefillah, and I was creating slides that I wanted to share. And in order to make them pretty. I wanted to get artwork. And so I would search Google for, Rosh Hashanah artwork. And you get, first of all, it's not really
Lots
legal
of
to take that
pomegranates.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. You get lots of pomegranates and apples and honey. But it's not, it's just a Google search. So Discover Jewish Art is going to be a place where people can come to get really high quality, cheap, but really high quality Jewish art that is customizable. We're going to have Canva templates. It's going to be customizable. There's going to be visual tefillah templates. There's going to be lots of different stuff because the experience can be so rich when it's provided in digital space. You're absolutely right about that. Absolutely.
And
right.
I think that's, if we look at everything, I mean, if you spend time on the internet looking for everything Jewish, unfortunately, a lot of what you end up doing is end up looking at historical stuff. That's life. There's a lot around the Shoah, incredible amount around that. But I'm sitting there going, that shouldn't define where we're going forward. It's part of where we've come from, but we need to create this environment that's not. Or, we've got to create our positive environment that's going forward. And you're absolutely right. We need to be sitting here and maybe we take a leaf out of some of the mega churches and some of the things they do. Maybe you sit there and go, whoa, that's too much. And I'm not sure I'm quite ready for jumbo screens dropping down either side and moving with smoke effects during a service. I think that may be a bit too much. But you do sit there and you go, well, what do we need to do to engage people? And one of the things that one of my rabbis did, Rabbi Leah Milstein, for Simchat Torah, she rolled the Torah. And she rolled it out and we saw it. And she did it. And I don't know if you've seen this yet. If you've seen the video.
I remember seeing it. Yeah, I saw the video.
It's brilliant. She rolled it. And it was one of those ones that she had the idea. She didn't have the time to do it professionally. So she's holding her iPhone while her and her husband rolled it. And so it's a bit bouncy and a bit whatever as it goes across the screen like this. But she was able to catch all of the, both sets of the 10 Commandments so you could see them clearly. Yeah. She was able to connect all the other bits that and I'm not a Torah expert, so I can't away from it. But you will know exactly, and you realize it's not a book. There is so much artistic work that has gone into it, not that just about the writing. And you sit there and you go, "That's really clever." And unless you've actually read the parting of the when they part the Red Sea and you've actually seen it. I mean, David, you can explain this better than I can. Please help me out here. Explain what I'm trying to explain.
Right. I mean, you're talking. I'll just show you. So this is when you just type for Rosh Hashanah. This is I can't tell you how many times I've seen these images on it because this is right. This is the stuff that we get. If I look at Torah scroll, again, we've seen all these images before, and you're right. I mean, there's such artistic quality to the text itself. So, for example, as you were saying in Shirat Hayam at the Song of the Sea, it's not daf because it's not the whole page, but that column looks different than every other column, and you don't appreciate that until you can see it. Same with Ha'azinu, which comes at the end of the Torah. And so the visual aspect the visual information that we're able to give in digital space can only enrich the experience. And a lot of people have been talking about, I did a video a while back called Please Don't Go Back to Normal, because a lot of people, I think most of us actually, really just wanted things to go back to normal. And I'm just not convinced that normal was all that great. I think that we can do better. That doesn't mean that we're not meeting in person. That doesn't mean that, like you said, it doesn't mean we're hanging, 15-foot, 20-foot screens in our sanctuaries. It just means that we have new tools now and new opportunities. And maybe even a new drive, a new energy
I was
to
going to
do
say
this
those are
better.
the exact two words I was going to use: drive and energy.
Yeah.
We have a new opportunity to sit there and go, slate, almost like anything. Slate's sweeping white clean. Do we sit there? And there are times in our religion when we can look back and we can say, well, we sat still, or we've gone inward,
Yeah.
and that does happen. And I'm not, and you can look at, at the shtetl, and you can look at how people went inward at certain times, and you need to do that. But I think this is one of those ones where we can say, well, we can take a stride forward. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, that's never how the world works. Are we going to rub people up the wrong way in some of the stuff we do? Yes. Is this going to be perfect? No. Is it going to be for everybody? No. But could there be an opportunity to say that some of the things that we've learned and some of the opportunities, why not try it? Why not
Right.
try it? We have an advert here for Dr. Pepper. I'm sure you probably did or didn't have a similar one, which is what's the worst that could ever happen, is what they said was the advert for Dr.
Really?
Pepper
That's
here.
an advertisement for that's
Dr.
terrible.
Pepper's advert in the UK is what's the worst that could ever happen, because it's like somebody who's never tried it.
Oh,
It's
I
like
see.
try
Okay.
it, you see. So that's it. So that's so that it's like try it. What's the worst thing? It's, you've bought a 1 pound can of, that's it. There you go. And yeah. But I think that's it. And
Yeah.
I think we've always said it. The biggest problem, if problem's right, the biggest barrier of getting people into the synagogue is getting them through the front door.
That's right.
And if we can actually sit there and not need them to come into the front door, but give them an opportunity to watch it, and that's why it comes back to the same question that we've asked earlier, which is how do we reach these people and how do we do this? And why I was saying before that why I think Zoom is super critical, but also using YouTube and also, as you said, using Facebook, is if you meet the people where they are and maybe you show them something. And I have to take my hat off to people like Chabad in the past,
Yeah.
who have in the real world have done this. And they have always gone out and sort of, with their big trucks, sort of land on the street and sort of try and bring people. Just
Shake
going to do it
lulav, put on
once.
tefillin. Yeah.
Just once. And maybe they just get knocked down, and maybe they get knocked back, and 100 times they get knocked back. But maybe one person, they come back and go, well, that wasn't that bad, actually.
Right. Right.
That wasn't
I
that
think it's
bad.
many more
It
than one
didn't-
person because they
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
There's the other piece. What you just said is really important about coming in through the door. And this is a conversation for another day. We're going to wrap this up in a second. But that I hope that this will also encourage us to think differently about what community means and what synagogue means, what sacred community means, because it's scary for synagogues to talk about people don't need to come in the door anymore. That's our bread and butter, is people coming in the door. And so we need to start thinking, what are our communities going to look like? What will it mean to belong to a synagogue with all these new tools that we have? I mean, I think that there are much bigger questions that have to also begun to be asked in order for this we're not going to reach our potential by just Zooming better or streaming better. We're going to have real conversations about what is the nature of community in a digital age.
I think you're right. And we did start this conversation with about technology. We did start saying, we both got new microphones and, and everything related to that. And that is important, but it's not the reason. It's not just about that. It's about where we're going with the community. And it's also about, I say this today, looking at what's happening in some of the rest of the world. And I mean, I'm very happy. Happy is not the right word. I'm very conscious that the Board of Deputies in the UK put out a very strong statement about what's happened in Afghanistan, and said and JCOR, which is our human rights end, have put out a statement that said we're very thankful that the UK government have said that they're going to have 20,000 refugees, but which is a good starting point, but it's not, and I think that's the point is, we've got to sit there and say, this is where we sit in the world. And maybe I'm going very philosophical here, but we also have to make sure that we're pushing it forward. And even to the point, coming back to this at the beginning, is we have to make sure that there are people who are sitting at home who maybe we had ignored for longer than we wish to actually admit to, that we've now brought back in. And we've got to make sure that we keep bringing them back in. And we've got to make sure that the next generation of people who couldn't come to the synagogue for whatever reason are made as welcome to our community as, and there less stories of people saying, well, I really wish my mother was able to witness her granddaughter's bat mitzvah. Maybe less of those stories will be told in the future.
Absolutely. Amen. Thanks for hanging, Leo. This is
I'm loving
amazing.
it.
I am going to ask you to do this again. I love this. This is
I love it. It's great.
It is very late where Leo is. What is it, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock?
It's 11 o'clock at night. But, I'm enjoying this.
Good. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, find you, listen to you?
Best place is Synagogue Tech. If you look up Synagogue Tech on Facebook, or you look up Dreaming 5782, I think it has been renamed to 5782.
They had to change the name
Facebook, and I think they're going to have to decide what they're going to do. They had a bit of a discussion whether they're going to go to where, but we could be going forever. But there's a wealth of information out there, and wealth of knowledge, and a wealth of people who want to help you do what you want to do, and I think that's key. And hopefully we can, we're not, the idea here really, I've done a lot of work with some Haredi communities.
Really?
Obviously they don't. Yep. Yeah,
Wow.
because they're realizing that there's a fabulous rabbi I'm doing some stuff with who is going, well, we're bringing out a podcast. He's brought out podcasts. He's brought out some other ways of communicating, because when you sit down, again, as I say, when you sit down with these guys, you realize they're very similar to us. They've got the same concerns. Maybe they've got a different view on another thing. Good, great. I don't want to be sitting in a room where we all agree. That doesn't really. That's not in our DNA. I think that was one thing that was never in our DNA. Was thou shall all agree with each other.
Right. I agree. Absolutely.
And that's great. So have a look at that Synagogue Tech.
Or Dreaming Tech. Yeah.
Dreaming Tech. You'll find that in Facebook, and there's also a YouTube channel, which is this is live broadcast on.
And if you are interested in the real techie stuff, Leo is also a regular on office hours every morning and after hours. Also, you sort of own that now. It feels like. Is that your baby, after hours, or no?
No. Actually, the person who mainly is in charge of after hours is Carmi.
Oh, it's Carmi.
Carmi, okay. Yeah. Carmi, who had. I think he had a Chabad upbringing. I'm pretty sure. So, very interesting guy. But what's great about that community, and very similar, is it just helps people. Everybody wants to hear your problem and help you solve it.
That's right.
It's just like being in synagogue.
Officehours.global. They meet every single day. We meet, I guess, because I've been on it a few times, every single day, and it's all about answering your questions. That's literally the whole show. It's really kind of amazing. So check that out, officehours.global. And as always, you're welcome to visit me, TorahTechGuy.com. I'm here to help all the time. Andrew, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. And Mom, you should look Andrew up because apparently you guys are neighbors. He's in San Francisco. So check each other out. And Leo, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow morning on Office Hours.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you later.